Hey, welcome back to Gold Scratch, and thank you for tuning into my channel. We appreciate it. So we're just back. Brian Hafner and I are just back from visiting David Bizard, Bill Jones, and Brian Salter. Tell you about that at the end. Pretty cool trip. Lots to tell you. But it's time to get back to work and doing what we do, which is build engines. So we got a treat for you today. If you're a home builder and you're just learning how to do stuff and you got a tired engine that needs to be freshened up, this is the show for you, because we're going to show you, using this engine right here, how to rebuild your engine for less than $500. And that includes buying the tools that you need to do it. I'll show you all that as well. And when you do the second one, it's going to be a lot less. It's going to cost me a lot less than $500 to do that. So while we're at it, please, in the description, my Summit affiliate, please link on that, or click on that link, please, for me. That helps me, it helps Summit, and helps doing all this, make even more sense. So we appreciate that. And if you got a similar experience, give us in your contents what you've done. This is, if you go back in the early days, we used to call that kind of shade tree mechanics, where you learned how to fix stuff, not necessarily the easy way. Just tipping this up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to strip this engine down, and I have an exhibit for you, which I'm going to put in the video for you, listing all the parts and the tools that you need. We're going to try to use all Summit brand tools, but we're going to get all the parts and tools from Summit for this job, and we're going to take it apart and fix it without spending a lot of money. Number one thing, it's not going to machine shop. Any machine operations it needs, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to show you how. And one of them is, if you're going to change piston rings, you got to rehone the cylinders. And I'm going to show you how to do that either with a hand hone or a so-called ball hone, or I think they call them dingleberry hones. Either way works fine, and we'll show you how to do that. And you can actually make it work. So this engine belonged to one of my customers, and he's going to put it in a Jeep, and he bought this engine sight unseen. So why is it a candidate for that? He bought this engine sight unseen, didn't know if it would run or not, so he just brought it to me initially. Can you get it running and let me know, is it suitable to put in my Jeep? Well, I got it running. It actually runs pretty good. It's nice and quiet. The valve lifters are quiet. It has good oil pressure. It doesn't have any leaks. It doesn't smoke. Boy, you think, why even take it apart? Well, I did diagnostics on it, leak down and compression, and I got a poor result with both. The compression's down on an average 30 or 40 PSI, and the leak down actually got 3 cylinders were over 60% leak down. So that tells you something's going on. So typically, it probably is a high mileage engine. We already identified it's a 327, small horsepower 327 that was built in late 66 for a 67 Chevelle. John bought it from a gentleman that had a 67 Chevelle who was putting an LS engine in. So he was probably a hot rodder. That tells you something. So then looking at the engine just externally, what do we know about it? Fortunately, we've had it running, so we know lots about it. And if you can have an engine running first and do diagnostics, a lot better chance of zeroing in on whatever problems there are and fixing them, making kind of a surgical repair rather than buy all new parts, get a bunch of machining costs, spend thousands of dollars. You can do that. In the subsequent videos, we're going to do the basic minimal rebuild for less than $500, and then we're going to show you stage 2, where we soup it up a little bit. We go to machine shop, we get a board out, put pistons. Stage 3, put a bigger cam in it, big heads, make big power. So that's going to come here eventually. But the stage 1 is we're going to attempt to strip it down, clean and repair it in my own shop, paint it, change the frost plugs and the oil plugs, power wash it in my driveway, hand hone it and reassemble it and get it back running and see how it works. So one of the things we know looking at it's probably a fairly high mile engine, but it's been hot rodded. How do you know that? So nice chrome valve covers, The aluminum, the intake manifold is aluminum. It's actually chrome, but it's under that, it's aluminum. And so it's been replaced. The original manifold would have been a cast iron manifold. It may have actually had a 2-barrel carburetor on it originally, or an AFB 4-barrel, one or the other, when it was built. So that's been replaced. The customer has an Edelbrock 600 CFM carburetor for it. That when we started it up, we used that. So that's been changed. Under the valve covers, when we had it apart, took it apart a little bit to check, it had nice forged aluminum full roller rocker arms. So that's an upgrade. So somebody, hot rodded this engine. But here's the real key. Look at the timing cover. The timing cover is chrome. It's not the original timing cover. That's a giveaway. Why would you change the timing cover? Because you probably changed the camshaft. So pretty good chance that we're going to find this is not the original stock camshaft. Somebody, made a nice, shade tree upgrade. Changed the camshaft, left the short block together, changed the rocker arms, put a nice intake manifold on it, probably increased the stock horsepower by 50 horsepower without a lot of work. And those are the kind of things that you can do, yourself, and without engaging a machine shop and buying a bunch of expensive parts. But that tells me the camshaft's probably been out of this engine. I'll make a bet with you, and I'll show you. As we tear it down, I will show you everything that we find. So we'll verify the camshaft a couple ways. One of the things we'll have to do, probably going to use the camshaft again. So this is a nice device you can buy from Summit. It's an organizer. So one of the things you have to do if you're going to reuse your camshaft and you have to take it out, make sure the lifters go back in the exact same location that they were in before, because then the lifter and the lobe of the cam kind of get to know each other. And so for that reason, you want to get them back in the right place. So using one of these is a good way to do that. If you don't want to spend, buy that. The other way you can do that, get a cardboard box, punch a bunch of holes in it, mark them, intake and exhaust, and put your lifters and push rods and all that in there and keep them all organized that way. But we plan to take the camshaft out, verify the camshaft. And so how can you tell if a camshaft is still good? Very easy. Take the lifters out one at a time, look at the bottom of the lifter. If the condition of the bottom of the lifter, it'll either be excellent or terrible, one or the other. Nothing in between. If it's worn at all, it's junk. If it's excellent, then the camshaft lobe's also excellent, and that camshaft's probably good to go. And we'll probably put this back together, with the original camshaft. So that's going to save a lot of money there. So what are we going to buy? In order to do this, we're going to use Summit parts. So you can buy a kit from Summit, and I got a sheet here. I'll put a screenshot of this. It's called a Summit re-ring kit. So it comes with new piston rings, new bearings, all the seals and gaskets that you need to do a complete tear down and rebuild. So what else do we need? We only need some oil. We got to break it back in again. So we need some break-in oil. We need an oil filter. So I put an allowance in here for paint and sealants and lubricants, things like that. I put an allowance for that so that you can estimate that if you're doing that. And a new frost block kit. I got the part numbers and the prices for all that in this sheet, and then you need some parts. But so hopefully we're going to get away with doing that, and I'm going to show you how we're doing it. And one of the point I want to make, a lot of my rebuilds, the last 383, every single part in that engine was brand new. So, except the block itself, of course, which had a lot of expensive machining done to it. That's a great way to go. It's not an inexpensive way to go. But there's a lot of things that happen. It bothers me, and I see stuff happening all the time. A lot of good stuff gets thrown away needlessly. It doesn't have to be. So, in typically with cars and stuff like that, we look at a manual, and it's called time-based maintenance. So if you look at your car manual, it probably says change the oil at 5,000 miles or 6 months or something like that. That's time-based. In industry, the trend nowadays is called condition-based. So they don't change their oil because it's 6 months old. They take a sample of it, send it to a laboratory. The laboratory tells them that oil is still good to use, and they don't change it until the condition of it tells them that it is. Remember one thing, your oil was 1,000,000 years old before you even put it in the engine, so another 6 months not going to hurt it. What happens to oil is it gets contaminated, and when it gets contaminated, then you do have to change it. But the concept of condition base, instead of throwing things away just because they're old, I'm glad that doesn't happen. Instead of throwing things away just because they're old, you throw things away or replace them because the condition of them deems that they should be replaced. So keep that in mind. I see a lot of times when jobs get done, guys take an engine, throw away a whole bunch of stuff that would work just fine if you use it again. And of course it depends what you're building. If you're building a fuel dragster, then you're not worried about that. But if you're trying to do something on a budget in your backyard and you just want some improved performance, or your engine to run another 20 or 30,000 miles, it's a good concept. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to use the camshaft again, going to use the lifters and rocker arms, the crankshaft. I mentioned, or if I didn't mention, when we had it running, the engine had great oil pressure. So that tells me the bearings are probably in pretty good condition. If the bearings are in good condition, the crankshaft's probably in good condition. Well, I'll mic the crank. I'll show you all that. I'll show you the measurements that we get and how we determine whether you need to change the bearings or not. Now, we are going to change the bearings. They come in the kit, so we're going to use them. But a lot of times you could put it together without changing the bearings. They were good up till now. They're probably going to be good into the future. But we are going to change bearings. So that's kind of the story. We're going to get this thing apart and see whether I'm right, whether it is a candidate for a minimal rebuild. There is another stage that you can do. Summit also sells the kit, which includes new pistons. Now you get into another realm, and now you could have your engine bored out. That's another, maybe that's phase 2. Once you need new pistons, they're probably going to be overboard. Now you're going to, not necessarily, but could be overboard. Now you're into machine work. Now you got to take the connecting rods off, do your recondition the connecting rods. Those are all decisions that you kind of have to struggle with and balance between, the result that you want to get, what are your priorities, and how much you want to spend, to get it. So that's the story with our 327. Next you'll see, as you get it apart, I'll show you some of the things we look at to determine the condition and whether it's a candidate for just a re-ring job. So that's about that. So back to just catch up on Brian Haftar and I, my machinist, Heads Performance, went down to North Carolina last week. And you keep hearing about Southern hospitality. Well, we saw it in action. We just got a great reception down there, and it was just so nice. The real original target was to visit David Vizard. Bill Jones is David Vizard's associate. He does a lot of support stuff for him. And Bill, thank you, Bill, organized all that. I got to meet Brian Salter in person. Brian and I talk all the time. He has a great video channel. Speaking of that, Brian's son, Caleb, was with us. And he was kind of in the background and didn't say too much. And when we got back, Brian made a great video. His son took all the clips of our trip. Check it out on Brian's. I think it's about don't take yourself too seriously or something. We had a great time, and that video shows it even better. So, but down there we did a couple other things. On the first day we went to Paramount Classic Cars and met Ken Stewart, and Ken was a great host. Thank you very much, Ken, for having us. It's not there's no kind of general admission. It's a private collection of cars that I've never seen so many beautiful cars in one place before. I have a video about that on my channel. I met Brian Hambley, an old buddy from my old back circle track days when Brian and I raced super late model together, and Brian took me to PME Engines, and we met Dennis Bourne. So Dennis is the owner and operator. He gave us a full tour. These guys build NASCAR engines, guys. So check out that video. It should be out before you see this one. Dennis took time out of his day, didn't know we were coming, and took time out of his day to show us around. Pretty impressive stuff that they do. They built some pretty cool stuff. So I think I've covered everybody off, and it was a great trip. And tonight, this is Tuesday. Bill just gave me a call. We're going to try and he's he's going to try and get me on David Vizard's podcast tonight, live podcast. So if we get that all worked out, we'll be doing that tonight. So thanks for watching, and stick with us. When we get this engine apart, we'll show you more and show you how you can do it for yourself. If you got a tired engine, but it's otherwise in pretty good condition, it give you good service, you just want to extend its life for another 25, 30,000 miles, with a little bit of work and not much money, you can do it. Thanks for watching. Okay, we'll call it the tip of the day. Forgot to do something in the video. So if you're going to do something like I just described, tear your engine down, hone the cylinders, change the rings and bearings, put it back together, you can do it. But you're going to need a few tools. In my case, I have all these tools, so once again, it's going to cost a lot less than $500. But if you don't, you're going to need to get some tools. So one of them is, I showed already a hone. This hone is powered by a drill. Now I have a 220 grit and a 400 grit stone. That's typically how I do it. I know there's 100 different, variations on how you're supposed to do that. That's kind of what I do. I'll show you how I do that. So I got two sets of stones, a 200, 220 and a 400. You need a way to expand your piston rings to get them on the pistons. And some guys put them on with their fingers. That's fine. I don't. And I'm always afraid I'm going to break one doing that. This tool works great, and I will show you how it works. It's not expensive. I've got all these tools listed on this sheet here, which I'll put in the video for you. I've got all the tools, the part numbers, and the cost of them, so you know what they are. So you need a way to get the rings compressed going into the cylinder. This is the nice way. And in the case of a 4-inch bore, which this engine is, stock 4-inch bore, it's very inexpensive. I think it's only like $25 or something like that. At Summit, $30.99. So pretty inexpensive. If you don't have that and you have one of these type adjustable ring compressors, I use this lots. I have many of these sizes. I don't have them all. So if I don't have them all, I use this, and it works very well. If you're going to buy it, you can buy this probably at Summit as well. I didn't look it up. So that's another tool that you may not have. You're going to need to prime the engine. Don't use a screwdriver blade. It won't do a good job. You need a priming tool, and the price and the part number is in there as well. So we're assuming you have, reasonable access to some tools, a place to work, some mechanical knowledge, and some mechanical ambition. That's the biggest part, guys. If you got the ambition, you'll figure out a way to get it done. So I don't have ratchets and wrenches in that list because I'm assuming that you have some stuff like that. If you don't, then you're going to have to beg or borrow them. And the other thing is, for some of these kind of tools, the other alternative, by the way, is the dingle ball or dingleberry style hone. I'll show that. I don't have one. This is what I use. They're inexpensive, and I have a price in there for that as well. They're inexpensive and they work. The difference is they don't shape your bore at all, and this shouldn't either. You shouldn't be trying to shape it at all. They just give it a crosshatch place to break in the piston rings and hold oil. So that's all that's necessary. And so you need some basic tools. Other than that, that's in the list, and that gets me under the $500. So stick with us and we'll make some progress and show you how it works.